Today we're going to learn a new word, porcupine. It has nothing to do with you, Arnold. It isn't that kind of pork.
Picture this. You wake up one morning, pour your coffee, and scroll through the news only to see that the state of Florida, a place already famous for its headlines involving alligators in swimming pools, men wrestling sharks on the beach, and more exotic animals per square mile than most zoos, has decided to release robotic rabbits into one of America's most precious natural ecosystems. Not real rabbits. Robots. Fake, solar-powered, remote-controlled, scent-emitting mechanical bunnies, deployed by the thousands across the Everglades to hunt one of the most dangerous predators on the continent. The Burmese python is native to Southeast Asia. It is one of the largest snake species on Earth, capable of reaching over 18 feet in length and weighing more than 200 pounds. In its home ecosystem in places like Myanmar and Thailand, it plays an essential ecological role, keeping populations of small mammals and birds in check. It belongs there. In Florida, it absolutely does not. The invasion began quietly. During the exotic pet boom of the 1980s and 1990s, thousands of Burmese pythons were imported into the United States and sold as novelty pets. They were impressive, they were exotic, and they grew at a rate that panicked owners never anticipated. When a 10-foot constrictor outgrows your living room and your local reptile rescue won't take calls, some people did the unthinkable. They drove to the Everglades and let the snakes go. Then, in 1992, Hurricane Andrew tore through South Florida with catastrophic force. Among the structures it destroyed was a python breeding facility in the Everglades. Hundreds of snakes were released in a single night. South Florida's subtropical climate, warm, wet, and rich with prey, was practically designed for a snake like this. With no natural predators capable of regularly hunting adult pythons, the population exploded. By the time wildlife managers understood the full scale of what was happening, the pythons had already won the first battle. The first confirmed python sighting in the Everglades dates to 1979. By the 1990s, the population was surging. Today, estimates put the number of Burmese pythons in South Florida somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 animals. The ecological consequences are staggering and, for anyone who cares about wildlife, genuinely heartbreaking. Burmese pythons are opportunistic apex predators. They will eat almost anything, and in the Everglades, they have. Studies have documented that in areas where pythons are densely established, populations of raccoons have declined by nearly 99%. White-tailed deer populations have crashed. Foxes, rabbits, opossums, bobcats, animals that formed the backbone of the Everglades food web for thousands of years, have been decimated. Inside Everglades National Park, officials report that the snakes have eliminated up to 95% of small mammals from certain areas, along with thousands of birds. And the damage doesn't stop there. When pythons wipe out the mammal populations that other native predators depend upon, Florida panthers, raptors, bobcats, alligators, those animals lose their food sources too. The ripple effects move through the entire ecosystem like a slow-motion catastrophe. Researchers have even documented that the pythons brought a deadly lungworm parasite from Southeast Asia that is now spreading to Florida's native snake species. In about 35 Florida counties, native snakes are being infected and dying from a parasite they never co-evolved with and have no defense against. The invasion is not just about one species competing with another. It is reshaping the entire biological machinery of one of America's most irreplaceable natural environments. Florida did not go quietly. In 2013, the state launched an annual Python Challenge, inviting hunters from across the country to compete in a 10-day event to remove as many Burmese pythons as possible. The event grew each year. In 2025, nearly 1,000 participants from across North America removed a record 294 snakes in 10 days. That sounds impressive, but experts are quick to point out that it barely dents a population estimated in the hundreds of thousands. The annual challenge matters more for the public awareness it generates than for the numbers it produces. The state went further. In 2017, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission launched a professional program called the Python Action Team Removing Invasive Constrictors, while the South Florida Water Management District created its own python elimination program. Both programs contract approximately 50 qualified hunters each, pay them hourly rates plus bonuses per snake removed, and send them into the field year-round. By the end of August 2025 alone, These programs had removed over 2,700 pythons, already matching the failure total from 2024 with months still to go. Since the programs launched in 2017, more than 17,000 pythons have been removed from Florida. And yet, the population barely seems to notice. In October 2025, Governor Ron DeSantis held a press conference in front of a podium reading Python began to announce a tripling of removal rates after the state partnered with a Miami-based company called Inversa Leathers, which transforms the removed pythons into wallets, boots, belts, and even footballs. The financial incentive created a significant surge in removal. In July 2025 alone, 748 pythons were removed, compared to 235 in July of the previous year. The pythons are literally being turned into fashion, and it is accelerating the fight. Now we get to the part that made headlines, went viral, and initially had the internet in stitches. Florida started releasing creatures into the Everglades to fight the pythons. Not a natural predator. There isn't one in North America capable of regularly hunting an adult Burmese python, but something almost more creative. The strategy began with scout snakes. Wildlife managers fitted male Burmese pythons with radio transmitters and released them back into the wild during breeding season. These scouts, drawn by instinct to find females, led researchers directly to breeding grounds and egg-laying females. Since a single large female can lay up to 100 eggs at a time, removing one pregnant female can prevent dozens of new pythons from entering the ecosystem. The Conservancy of Southwest Florida has used this method to track 40 pythons across a 200-square-mile area. By focusing on pregnant females, the team stopped an additional 20,000 python eggs from hatching since 2013. In their most recent season alone, between November 2025 and April 2026, the Conservancy's team removed 177 pythons weighing a combined 8,080 pounds, their first 4-ton removal season and a new record. Then came the sniffer dogs. In 2020, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission deployed specially trained detector dogs capable of picking up the scent of pythons in dense brush. Dogs can cover terrain that human hunters cannot, and in environments as thick and wet as the Everglades, scent is often the only reliable tool for finding animals that can lie completely still and invisible in plain sight. Then came the tracker prey. Researchers fitted radio tracking devices to raccoons, rabbits, and opossums, the python's favorite meals, so that when a python swallowed one, hunters could follow the signal directly to the snake. It worked. It was also expensive and logistically complicated in remote, swampy terrain. Then came the robot rabbits. And this is where people started laughing. In the summer of 2025, the South Florida Water Management District, in partnership with the University of Florida, deployed 120 solar-powered, remote-controlled robotic marsh rabbits across strategic locations in the Everglades. Each robot started as a toy rabbit, then was completely rebuilt from the inside out. Over 30 electronic components were installed inside each one. Solar-powered heaters to mimic the body warmth of a living animal, small motors that produced subtle and lifelike movement, waterproof casings to withstand rain and humidity, scent emitters designed to smell like an actual rabbit, and motion-activated cameras that sent instant alerts when a python entered the detection zone. Each robot cost approximately $4,000. They were placed in small monitored pens, switched on remotely, and the cameras watched. When a python came for what it believed was a meal, contractors were deployed to remove the snake. When this story broke, the headlines were merciless. Social media had a field day. Why is Florida spending $4,000 per stuffed animal? Who approved robot bunnies as a conservation strategy? What is happening in that state? What is happening, it turns out, is science. Earlier, researchers had tested the concept with 9 real rabbit-baited cages over 90 days in the Everglades. Those 9 pens lured 22 pythons. The live rabbits proved the concept. But caring for live bait in remote, waterlogged wilderness is costly, labor-intensive, and ethically complicated. The robot rabbits solved every one of those problems at once. They run on sunlight, need no feeding or veterinary care, and can operate for long stretches without maintenance. The camera alerts allow rapid contractor response. A University of Florida study supporting the strategy noted that pythons regularly stayed in camera range for over an hour after engaging with the bait, more than enough time for a hunter to arrive. Nobody is laughing now. The robot rabbits are part of a broader and increasingly sophisticated toolkit that is producing record removal numbers. Eradication of the python population is not considered feasible. The population is simply too large and too hidden. But long-term management, powered by every creative tool science can devise, is the realistic and achievable goal. As one biologist put it, prevention is far more effective and cheaper than control. Florida learned that lesson the hard way. It is not making the same mistake twice. Speaking of creatures released into an environment they absolutely did not belong in, let's talk about Lisa Douglas. Welcome to Hooterville. Green Acres premiered on CBS on September 15, 1965, and ran for 170 episodes across 6 seasons before its abrupt cancellation in 1971. It starred Eddie Albert as Oliver Wendell Douglas, a Manhattan lawyer with an almost irrational dream of living off the land, and Eva Gabor as his wife Lisa, a Hungarian-born socialite who approached farm life the way most people approach tax audits, with deep confusion and a great outfit. The show was beloved, bizarre, and bursting with wit. Here are 15 facts about it that you probably didn't know. Green Acres didn't begin as a television concept. The seed was planted on radio more than a decade before Oliver and Lisa ever set foot in Hooterville. In the summer of 1950, CBS aired a short-lived radio series called Granby's Green Acres, featuring a big-city banker who dreams of leaving finance behind for the simple life of a farm. He drags his wife along, and neither of them knows the first thing about agriculture. The show only ran for about 7 weeks as a summer replacement series, but it was created by Jay Sommers, the same writer who would eventually develop the television version. 2 actors in that original radio cast went on to become fixtures in the wider Hooterville universe: Gail Gordon, who later played Mr. Mooney on The Lucy Show, and B.A. Bernadette, who eventually starred as Kate Bradley on Petticoat Junction, the very show that would share the Hooterville world with Green Acres. Eddie Albert was not on a sitcom hunt when Green Acres came calling. By his own account, he had already turned down the role of the father on My 3 Sons, and passed on an opportunity to co-star alongside a talking horse on Mr. Ed. He was not particularly interested in television, having once described the medium as geared to mediocrity. But when his agent explained the premise of Green Acres, something clicked. Albert later recalled telling his agent, "Swell, that's me. Everyone gets tired of the rat race. Everyone would like to chuck it all and grow some carrots. It's basic. Sign me." That instinctive connection to the character's core longing, and Albert's own genuine love of nature and farming, became the heartbeat of the entire show. Producer Paul Henning wanted Eva Gabor for the role of Lisa Douglas from the start. CBS absolutely did not. Network executives worried that her thick Hungarian accent would confuse American audiences, make jokes harder to land, and generally alienate viewers who weren't used to hearing that kind of voice on a primetime sitcom. Henning wouldn't budge. He believed the accent wasn't a liability. It was the whole point. Lisa Douglas was meant to be someone who didn't fit in, couldn't blend in, and wasn't trying to. Her foreignness was the joke, the heart, and the charm all at once. The network eventually relented. From the moment Gabor appeared on screen, it was obvious that Henning had been right all along. Before Eddie Albert, producers went looking for their Oliver Wendell Douglas and landed on Donna Mesh, at the time a bigger name, a radio legend, and a well-respected film actor with serious Hollywood credentials. Amesh passed on the role. That single decision opened the door for Albert, whose mix of sincerity, stubborn idealism, and barely suppressed frustration became the precise engine the show needed. It's tempting to imagine a version of Green Acres with a different Oliver, but almost impossible to believe it would have been half as good. The catchy, bickering duet that opened every episode was composed by Vic Mizzy, the same man responsible for the Addams Family theme. But what made the Green Acres theme genuinely unique was that the stars sang it themselves. Green Acres was the first sitcom in television history to have its lead actors perform their own theme song. And it wasn't just a musical intro. It was a compressed version of the entire show's premise. Oliver sang about fresh air and open land while Lisa purred about Times Square and Park Avenue. The entire conflict of the series was laid out in under a minute every single week, before the episode even started. According to multiple accounts, they nailed it in one take. Actor Pat Buttram, who played the shifty, silver-tongued local salesman Mr. Haney, confirmed in interviews that he modeled the character on Colonel Tom Parker, the notoriously slippery manager of Elvis Presley. Buttram had encountered Parker years earlier when Parker was working the carnival circuit, and the impression stuck. Like Mr. Haney, Parker was charming, relentless, and always working an angle. Parker wasn't actually a colonel. He'd been given an honorary Kentucky Colonel title and simply ran with it. His business dealings with Elvis were legendarily one-sided, taking enormous cuts and making deals that consistently benefited himself more than his client. Buttram borrowed Parker's rhythmic pitchman delivery, his evasive charisma, and even hints of his hard-to-place accent to construct Mr. Haney, a man who could sell Oliver Douglas a broken tractor, a haunted washing machine, and a warranty that covered neither, all in one breath. Despite 6 successful seasons and a devoted national audience, Green Acres received exactly 0 Emmy nominations throughout its entire run. The first time the show was ever acknowledged at the Emmys was decades after cancellation, when a tribute was paid at the 2006 telecast. However, one member of the cast was absolutely showered in awards, Arnold Ziffel, the pig. Arnold won multiple Patsy Awards, the animal entertainment world's equivalent of an Oscar, including recognition as television's best animal performer. Arnold received mountains of fan mail, had his own fan club, and was responsible, by some accounts, for a notable number of children refusing to eat pork chops. Multiple pigs played Arnold over the years, with female pigs often substituted because they gained weight more evenly and maintained a consistent look on camera. For decades, one of the most persistent dark rumors floating around Green Acres was that the cast held a luau at the end of the series in 1971, and that Arnold the pig ended up as the main course. It is completely and utterly false. The story was invented by Tom Lester, who played farmhand Eb Dawson, because he grew tired of being asked at every public appearance what had happened to Arnold after the show ended. He told a reporter it as a joke. The joke spread, mutated, and somehow became one of television's most persistent urban legends. The truth is that the trainer most associated with Arnold, legendary Hollywood animal trainer Franken, adored the pig deeply. When he passed away years later, Arnold's ashes were buried with him, a tribute to a bond that was anything but a punchline. Hank Patterson, who played Fred Ziffel, the farmer who treated Arnold the pig as his actual son, was almost entirely deaf by the time he joined the cast. Rather than write him off, the production found creative solutions to keep him in the show. One method involved a dialogue coach lying on the ground just out of camera frame, tapping Patterson on the leg with a yardstick when it was time for him to deliver his lines. Patterson was so popular with the cast, the crew, and audiences that CBS was determined to make it work, and they did, for the entire run of the series.